Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we talk a lot about feeling stuck in a rut at work, but what if the rut is actually the whole system?
Oh, yeah.
Today, we're going deep into Michael Gerber's The E-Myth Manager
Right.
to see why he thinks even successful workplaces are often set up for frustration and burnout.
It's a pretty radical idea.
Yeah,
Right? Gerber doesn't pull any punches
right.
when it comes to dissecting traditional management practices.
He doesn't. You've provided his book, which lays out some truly insightful anecdotes
Yes.
and concepts. Let's jump right into this managerial myth he talks about. What's the core issue here?
Well, remember the E-myth itself,
Right.
that idea that technical skill doesn't equal business sense. Gerber argues that the way most companies are structured actually perpetuates this myth, even at the management level.
So we're promoting people into leadership roles who are great at the doing,
Yes,
but not at the leading.
exactly. And this creates a cascade of problems.
Right.
Gerber uses the character of Jack, a manager at his own E-myth academy,
Right.
to illustrate this. Jack is outwardly successful, but inwardly miserable
Oh, yeah.
and feeling trapped.
Oh, I remember Jack. He's like the poster child for the disillusioned middle manager.
Yes.
What's interesting is Gerber doesn't just blame Jack or his company. He points to this tension between our inner emperor, manager, and technician.
That's such a powerful analogy,
Yeah.
isn't it? We all have these three personalities within us, and they're often at odds. The emperor is our visionary side. The manager is the pragmatic planner.
Right.
And the technician just wants to get things done.
But most workplaces reward the technician,
Yes.
right? So even when someone is promoted,
Yes.
they're still mostly operating from that mindset.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where the manager's trap comes in. You get promoted,
Right.
you're accountable for results, but you don't actually have the authority to change the systems that are producing those results. It's a recipe for burnout.
So how do you escape that trap? Gerber does offer those 7 rules. Any that stand out as particularly relevant here?
Rule 5 is the big one. There are no simple answers, only complex questions. It challenges that knee-jerk reaction to look for a quick fix when what's needed is a fundamental shift in thinking.
Oh, and then there's rule 6. Before it gets better,
Yes.
it's going to get worse. Not exactly comforting, but definitely rings true when you're trying to change a deeply ingrained system.
Right. It speaks to the inevitable discomfort that comes with growth.
Right.
And for managers, this discomfort is often amplified
Yeah.
because they're caught between the emperor's vision and their own lack of power to actually implement it.
So is Gerber saying every manager is doomed to be miserable?
Not at all.
Yeah.
But I say we need to recognize how often we're working towards someone else's goals,
Right.
even at the expense of our own fulfillment. This lack of alignment between personal vision and the emperor's vision is a huge source of frustration.
I think a lot of listeners can relate to that feeling of being on someone else's hamster wheel. But okay, if lack of authority is the problem, is
Yeah.
the solution just to give everyone more power?
Right.
That seems a bit chaotic.
Well, Gerber isn't advocating for anarchy.
Right.
He's advocating for what he calls conscious organizations,
Right.
places where everyone understands the vision, the system, and their role within it. It's about creating a structure that empowers people, not just throws power around randomly.
So instead of micromanaging individuals,
Yes,
you're managing the system itself.
exactly.
But how do you even start to build that kind of organization? Where does a manager who's already feeling trapped even begin?
Gerber lays out a pretty detailed roadmap,
Okay.
starting with the financial strategy. And it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet.
He wants you to make it personal.
Yes.
Right. I love that example he uses of the delivery truck driver.
Yes. Imagine if that driver thought of themselves as the owner of that truck en route.
Right.
They'd be hyper-aware of costs, efficiency, and maximizing the value of their business. It's a powerful way to shift your perspective.
Okay, so financial strategy is step 1.
Yeah.
But what about the structure of the company itself? How do you go about actually reorganizing things in this more conscious way?
Gerber provides a framework called the 7 essential functions. He argues that any business, no matter how complex, can be broken down into these core functions.
Right.
And that clarity is key.
So it's about identifying the organization's core promise
Yeah.
and then building a system that can actually deliver on that promise consistently.
Exactly. He tells a fascinating story about a struggling retail giant,
Okay.
Success Stores USA.
Right.
They were drowning in complexity and bureaucracy until a marketing manager named Martina stepped up and completely revamped their approach.
Yeah, Martina's story is a great example of what can happen when someone takes ownership and isn't afraid to challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. She recognized that the company had lost sight of its core promise, and her innovative organizational strategy brought them back to their roots,
Right.
empowering employees and streamlining operations.
Okay, so we've covered the financial and organizational strategies. What about the actual day-to-day management? How does that change in an E-Myth organization?
Gerber focuses on three key principles: innovation, quantification, and orchestration. It's not enough to just come up with new ideas.
Right.
You have to measure their impact and build systems that can replicate success.
That reminds me of the landscaping contractor Gerber talks about. The guy insisted every job was unique.
Right.
But he actually had all these unconscious systems he was already using.
Exactly. We often have processes we don't even recognize. And that's where quantification is crucial.
Right.
By measuring and tracking, you start to see the patterns, the inefficiencies, and the opportunities for improvement.
So instead of just reacting to problems, you're proactively building a more efficient and effective system.
Exactly.
But what about the people within that system? I'm guessing Gerber has some unconventional ideas about managing people too.
Oh, absolutely. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
He argues that you can't actually manage people directly,
Oh.
which seems counterintuitive, right?
It does. Isn't that like the whole point of being a manager?
That's what we've been led to believe.
Right.
But Gerber thinks it's a recipe for conflict and frustration. Instead, you manage the system people work within.
So you're creating the environment and structure.
Yeah,
And then trusting people to do their best work within that framework.
precisely. And to do that effectively, you need to understand the different types of people you're working with.
Right.
He breaks it down into 4 archetypes:
Yeah.
the mercenary,
Okay.
the patriot,
Okay.
the student, and the inventor.
Can you give us a quick rundown of each type?
Sure. The mercenary is driven by expertise and reward.
Okay.
They're loyal to the highest bidder and excellent at what they do,
Right.
but not necessarily invest in the bigger picture. Then you have the patriot,
Okay.
who thrives on being part of something bigger than themselves,
Right.
loyal to causes and leaders.
Okay. So the mercenary is motivated by money
Yes.
and the patriot is motivated by purpose. What about the other two?
The student is always eager to learn and grow,
Okay.
driven by a thirst for knowledge and mentorship. And finally, the inventor is the classic outside-the-box thinker, constantly seeking new and better ways to do things.
So the student wants to grow
Yes,
and the inventor wants to innovate.
exactly.
By recognizing these different motivations, you can tailor your management approach accordingly.
Exactly. It's about creating a system that plays to everyone's strengths
Right.
and provides opportunities for growth and contribution.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense.
Good.
So we've talked about the financial strategy, the organizational strategy, the management strategy, and now the people strategy.
Right.
What's the final piece of this E-Myth puzzle?
The final piece is the marketing strategy.
Okay.
And this is where Gerber really flips the script on how most of us think about marketing.
Okay.
He argues that marketing isn't just about advertising and promotion.
It's about the entire customer experience.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Every touch point,
Right.
every interaction,
Right.
every detail that shapes the customer's perception of the brand. He sees it as a holistic system that delivers on the company's core promise.
And I bet you're going to bring up Dr. Sandy again.
Of course, his on-time, every-time promise was a perfect example of this.
Right.
He didn't just tell people he'd be punctual.
Right.
He created a system that made it a reality.
And it completely transformed his practice. He had to streamline processes, improve communication,
Yes.
and create a more patient-centric environment.
Yes.
It wasn't just a marketing slogan.
Yeah.
It was a fundamental shift in how his whole organization operated.
Exactly. And that's what Gerber is advocating for.
Yeah.
A more integrated approach to business,
Yeah.
where marketing is woven into the very fabric of the organization.
So it's not a separate department or function. It's
Right.
an essential part of how the entire organization operates.
Exactly.
That's a pretty profound shift in thinking.
It is, and it's one that can have a huge impact on the success and fulfillment of everyone involved. It's about recognizing that marketing is ultimately about delivering on your promise, both to your customers and to yourself.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects. But let's dive a little deeper into each of these strategies in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
What's fascinating here is this whole E-Myth concept isn't just for CEOs and entrepreneurs.
Right.
It's relevant for anyone who feels stuck in that
Yeah.
working for the weekend mentality.
You're saying even someone who's not in a traditional management role
Yeah,
can apply these ideas.
absolutely. Gerber argues that we can all become E-Myth managers of our own work,
Okay.
even within a large organization. It starts with defining what he calls your primary aim.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is this primary aim and how do you figure yours out?
It's essentially your personal vision for your life, both professionally and personally.
Okay.
It's the impact you want to make,
Right.
the legacy you want to leave behind. Gerber suggests picturing your ideal life in vivid detail. What does it look like,
Right.
feel like?
So it's not just about climbing the corporate ladder.
No.
It's about connecting your work to a deeper sense of purpose.
Exactly. And once you have that clarity, you can start to assess whether your current job is helping you move towards that vision or pulling you further away. This can be a tough but necessary realization for a lot of people.
Yeah, it might mean having some uncomfortable conversations with yourself or your boss.
Right.
But I guess the point is you have more agency than you think, even if you're not the one calling all the shots.
Right. It's about recognizing that you're not just a cog in the machine. You have choices, even if they're not always obvious or easy. Gerber's work is really about empowerment, about taking ownership of your career path.
Okay, so let's say you've done the soul searching.
Okay.
You know your primary aim, and you're ready to embrace the E-Myth manager mindset.
Yeah.
Where do you actually start putting these ideas into practice? It feels a bit overwhelming.
It can be, but remember, this is a journey,
Right.
not a destination.
No.
Gerber emphasizes starting with the work of the organization,
Right.
building that conscious, system-driven approach.
Right, and that's where those 7 essential functions come in.
Yes.
But how do you apply those to your own work, especially if you're not in charge of the whole company?
It's about understanding how your individual role contributes to the overall system. What's your piece of the puzzle?
Right.
What's the promise you're responsible for delivering?
Okay, I see. So even if you're just one person,
Yeah.
you're still operating within a larger system,
Right.
and those 7 functions help you clarify your place in that system.
Exactly. And Gerber is all about making that system as clear and efficient as possible. He's a huge advocate for creating turnkey systems,
Right.
step-by-step processes that anyone can follow to achieve a specific result.
So it's about taking the guesswork out of things,
Yes.
making it clear what needs to be done and how to do it. But doesn't that stifle creativity? What about those inventor types who thrive on thinking outside the box?
That's a great question. And Gerber's answer is that clear systems actually enhance creativity. When you have a solid foundation in place, you can innovate and experiment without fear of things falling apart. It's about creating structure that supports, not stifles creativity.
I hadn't thought of it that way before. So you're saying a well-defined system actually frees people up to be more innovative,
Yes,
not less.
exactly. And that brings us to the work of the individual. While you can't directly manage people,
Right.
you can create an environment that encourages growth and development. It's about giving people the tools and resources they need to succeed, but also the space to figure things out for themselves.
So it's a more collaborative and less hierarchical approach.
Yes.
It's about trusting people to do their best work rather than constantly looking over their shoulders.
Precisely. And Gerber believes that this leads to a more engaged and fulfilled workforce, where people feel valued and empowered to contribute their unique talents.
Okay, I'm really liking this shift in perspective. So we've got the work of the organization and the work of the individual,
Yes.
all built on this foundation of clear systems.
Right.
But what about the practical side of things, like money?
Ah, yes, the financial strategy. Remember that owner mentality we talked about earlier?
Right.
That's crucial here.
So even if you're not the CEO,
Yeah.
you're still thinking about costs,
Right.
efficiency, and profitability as if it were your own money on the line.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the financial health of the company is everyone's responsibility.
Right.
And Gerber suggests a simple but powerful exercise.
Right.
Calculate the true cost of your time.
You mean like figure out your actual hourly rate,
Yes,
taking into account all your expenses and overhead?
exactly. It's amazing how many people have never done this calculation.
Right.
It can really shift your perspective on how you spend your time and the value you bring to the organization.
Okay, that's a great tip. So we've covered systems,
Okay.
people, money.
Uh-huh.
What about marketing? How does an E-Myth manager approach that?
Remember, it's not just about ads and promotions. It's about the entire customer experience
Right.
and how that experience delivers on the company's core promise.
Right, like Dr. Sandy and his on time, every time guarantee.
Yes.
It was more than just a slogan. It was a commitment to a certain level of service.
Exactly. And that commitment had to be reflected in everything they did,
Right.
from scheduling appointments to designing the waiting room.
Right.
It was a holistic approach to marketing that went far beyond traditional tactics.
Okay, so it's about creating a seamless and positive experience for the customer at every touch point.
Yes.
But how do you do that if you're not in charge of the entire customer journey?
It's about understanding your role in that journey
Right.
and making sure you're delivering on your piece of the promise. It might be as simple as answering the phone with a smile or responding to emails promptly.
So even small actions can contribute to the overall customer experience.
Yes.
It's about taking ownership of your role, no
Exactly.
matter how big or small.
Exactly. And that's really the essence of the E-Myth Manager philosophy.
Right.
It's about taking ownership, creating systems, and empowering yourself and others to do their best work.
Okay, this is all starting to click for me. But I think we need to talk more about those three personalities Gerber describes: the emperor,
Yes.
the manager, and the technician. How do those fit into this whole E-Myth Manager idea?
Yes. Those archetypes are crucial to understanding how to effectively lead and manage. They represent different aspects of ourselves and how we approach work.
So let's unpack that. Who is the emperor in this equation?
The emperor is the visionary leader,
Okay.
the big picture thinker, the one who sets the overall direction and purpose. They're often charismatic and inspiring, driven by a strong sense of mission.
Okay, so they're the ones who come up with the grand ideas, the
Yeah.
ones who paint the vision of what's possible.
Exactly. Think Steve Jobs with his relentless pursuit of innovation, or Elon Musk with his ambitious plans to colonize Mars. Those are classic examples of the emperor archetype in action.
Okay, so we have the visionary emperor.
Yes.
What about the manager? What's their role in this framework?
The manager is the pragmatic planner, the organizer, the one who takes the emperor's vision and turns it into a reality. They're the systems builders, the ones who create structure and order out of chaos.
So they're the ones who bridge the gap between the big picture ideas and the day-to-day operations.
Exactly. They're the ones who create the plans, delegate tasks, set deadlines, and make sure everything runs smoothly.
Okay, so we have the visionary emperor and the pragmatic manager. What about the technician? Where do they fit into this picture?
The technician is the skilled worker,
Okay.
the doer, the one who loves to get their hands dirty and make things happen. They're the experts in their field, the ones who take pride in their craft.
So they're the ones who are actually building the product, providing the service,
Yes.
bringing the vision to life.
Exactly. They're the master bakers, the skilled mechanics, the gifted surgeons who bring their expertise and passion to their work.
Okay, so we have these three distinct archetypes: the visionary emperor,
Yes.
the pragmatic manager, and the skilled technician.
Yes.
How do they interact with each other within an organization?
Ideally, they work together in a harmonious balance,
Right.
each playing their unique role to contribute to the overall success of the enterprise.
So it's like a well-oiled machine, with each part working in sync with the others.
Exactly. The emperor sets the direction, the manager creates the system,
Right.
and the technician executes the plan. When all three are working together effectively,
Yeah.
you have a recipe for a truly thriving organization.
But what happens when that balance is disrupted? What are some of the challenges that can arise when these three personalities clash?
Well, one of the most common problems is when the technician tries to wear the emperor's hat.
So when the skilled worker tries to take on the role of the visionary leader.
Exactly. This often happens when a talented individual starts their own business.
Right,
They're so good at what they do.
right.
They assume they can naturally handle the business side of things as well.
But as we talked about earlier with the E-Myth,
Yes.
that's not always the case.
Right. They may be a brilliant baker, but they don't necessarily have the skills or the mindset to manage a bakery.
No, they end up feeling overwhelmed,
Right.
frustrated, and ultimately their business suffers.
Exactly. And another common challenge is when the manager tries to micromanage the technician.
So when the organizer and planner starts to dictate every detail of the skilled worker's process.
Exactly. This can stifle creativity, demotivate employees,
Right.
and ultimately lead to a decline in quality.
It's important to remember that the technician needs the space and freedom to do what they do best.
Absolutely. And the manager's role is to support them,
Right.
to provide the resources and structure they need to thrive, but not to try to control every aspect of their work.
Okay, so those are some of the challenges that can arise when the balance is disrupted.
Right.
What about the benefits? What are some of the positive outcomes when these three personalities are working together effectively?
Well, when you have a clear vision from the emperor,
Okay.
a well-organized system from the manager, and a skilled technician executing the plan,
Yeah.
you have a recipe for incredible success.
So it's about maximizing everyone's potential and creating a synergy where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And it's not just about the bottom line, it's also about creating a more fulfilling and meaningful work experience for everyone involved.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their unique talent.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of the EMIT philosophy.
Right.
It's not just about making more money or being more efficient. It's about creating a work environment that's both successful and humane.
Okay, so we've talked about the emperor, the manager, and the technician.
Right.
How does this relate to the idea of becoming an E-Myth manager? What does it mean to embody all three of these personalities?
Well, Gerber argues that the key to becoming an EMIT manager is to develop all three of these personalities within yourself.
So it's about being able to think like a visionary leader,
Yes.
a pragmatic organizer,
Right.
and a skilled technician,
Yes.
all at the same time.
Exactly. It's about having the flexibility to shift between these different roles depending on the situation.
So sometimes you need to be the one setting the big picture direction.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to be the one creating the systems and processes. And sometimes you need to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty.
Exactly. It's about being a well-rounded leader who can understand and appreciate the contributions of everyone on the team.
Okay, this is a lot to take in, but it's also incredibly inspiring. It feels like a roadmap for creating a more fulfilling and successful work life, both for ourselves and for the people we work with.
It is, isn't it? And I think it's a message that's more relevant than ever in today's complex and rapidly changing world.
Okay, so let's say you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I want to become an E-Myth manager, but how do I actually start developing these three personalities within myself? What are some practical steps you can take?
Well, Gerber suggests that the first step is to become more self-aware.
So it's about taking a step back and really understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, your own tendencies and patterns.
Exactly. It's about identifying which of these three personalities comes most naturally to you, and then consciously working to develop the other two.
So if you're a natural technician, you might need to work on your leadership and organizational skills.
Right. And if you're a natural emperor,
Right.
you might need to work on your attention to detail and your ability to execute plans.
And if you're a natural manager,
Yes.
you might need to work on your ability to think outside the box and come up with innovative ideas.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance and developing all three of these personalities within yourself.
Okay, so self-awareness is the first step.
Right.
What are some other things you can do to become an E-Myth manager?
Well, Gerber emphasizes the importance of creating systems and processes for every aspect of your work.
So it's about taking a step back from the day-to-day grind.
Yes.
And really thinking about how things could be done more efficiently and effectively.
Exactly. It's about creating step-by-step instructions, checklists, and templates that anyone can follow to achieve a desired result.
So it's about taking the guesswork out of things. And making sure that everything runs smoothly, even when you're not there to personally supervise every detail.
Exactly. And this focus on systems not only makes your work more efficient,
Right.
it also frees up your time and energy to focus on the bigger picture.
So you can spend more time thinking like an emperor,
Yeah.
coming up with innovative ideas, and setting the overall direction for your team.
Exactly. And you can also spend more time focusing on the work of the individual,
Right.
which is all about supporting the growth and development of your employees.
So it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Yes.
The systems make the work more efficient,
Right.
which frees up the manager to focus on leadership and employee development,
Yeah.
which ultimately leads to a more successful and fulfilling work environment.
Exactly. And I think that's the beauty of the E-Myth philosophy. It's a holistic and integrated approach that takes into account the needs of both the organization and the individual.
Okay, so we've talked about self-awareness
Yes.
and systems thinking.
Uh-huh.
What about the financial side of things?
Right.
How does an E-Myth manager approach money management?
Well, as we talked about earlier, it's all about developing that owner mentality.
So thinking about money as if it were your own, even if you're not the actual owner of the business.
Exactly. It's about being conscious of costs,
Right.
focus on profitability,
Yeah.
and always looking for ways to create more value for the organization.
And it's about educating everyone in the organization about the basics of finance.
Yeah.
So that they can make informed decisions and take ownership of their own financial well-being.
Exactly. And Gerber suggests that this starts with a simple exercise,
Okay.
calculating the true cost of your time.
So figuring out how much you're actually earning per hour, taking into account all of your expenses and overhead costs.
Exactly. This can be a real eye-opener for a lot of people, as it helps them to understand the true value of their time and make more strategic decisions about how they spend it.
Okay, so we've covered self-awareness, systems thinking, and financial management.
Right.
What about the marketing strategy? How does an E-Myth manager approach marketing?
Well, as we discussed earlier, it's all about creating an exceptional customer experience that delivers on the company's core promise.
So it's not just about advertising and promotion. It's
Yeah.
about the entire system that delivers on the brand's promise.
Exactly. It's about understanding your target market,
Right.
identifying their needs and desires, and then building a system that can consistently exceed their expectations.
And it's about thinking beyond the traditional marketing tactics and really focusing on creating a positive and memorable experience for every customer every time.
Exactly. And this is where the E-Myth philosophy really shines.
Right.
It's about creating a business that's not only successful, but also fulfilling and meaningful for everyone involved.
Okay, this has been an incredible deep dive into the E-Myth manager philosophy.
Yes, has.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From the importance of self-awareness and systems thinking to the power of creating an exceptional customer experience.
It's a lot to digest, but I think it's a message that's worth taking the time to really understand and internalize.
Because ultimately it's about creating a work life that's not only successful, but also deeply fulfilling,
Yes,
both for ourselves and for the people we work with.
absolutely. And I think that's something we can all aspire to, regardless of what kind of work we do.
This has been a truly insightful conversation. I feel like I have a much better understanding of how to apply these concepts to my own work.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, it's not about being perfect or
Right.
having all the answers. It's about constantly learning,
Right.
growing, and striving to create a more conscious and fulfilling work experience for yourself and everyone around you.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the E-Myth manager, what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listener will walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that even if you're not the CEO or founder of a company, you can still take ownership of your work and create a more fulfilling and impactful experience.
Right. It's about shifting our mindset from being a passive employee to becoming an active entrepreneur, even within a larger organization.
Exactly. And it starts with understanding your own personal vision,
Right.
your own primary aim, as Gerber calls it. What are your unique talents and passions? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
And then it's about looking at your current work situation through that lens. Is it helping you move towards that vision,
Yes.
or is it holding you back?
Right. And if it's not aligned,
Right.
it might be time to make some changes,
Right.
either within your current role or by exploring new opportunities.
And remember, it's not just about you. It's about creating a more conscious and fulfilling work experience for everyone on your team.
Exactly. And that's where those 7 essential functions come in. It's about creating a system that's not only efficient and profitable,
Right.
but also supportive and empowering for everyone involved.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where the needs of the organization and the needs of the individual are both met.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the E-Myth philosophy so compelling. It's not just about making more money or being more efficient. It's about creating a more humane and sustainable way to work.
Okay, so let's leave our listener with a final thought-provoking question to ponder. If you were the emperor of your own work, what promise would you create? What kind of experience would you want to deliver to your customers, your colleagues, and most importantly, to yourself?
That's a great question. It really challenges us to think about our work in a whole new way, to envision the possibilities and to take ownership of our own unique contribution to the world.
And remember, no matter where you are in your career,
Yes.
it's never too late to become an E-Myth manager. It's a journey of self-discovery, of systems thinking, and of creating a more conscious and fulfilling work experience for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. You know, it's funny, we often talk about work-life balance as if those two things are fundamentally at odds.
Yeah.
But Gerber seems to be suggesting that they can actually be integrated, that work can be a source of genuine fulfillment.
That's a really insightful observation, and I think it's at the heart of what makes the E-Myth Manager so relevant, even decades after it was first published. Gerber isn't just offering business advice.
Right.
He's offering a philosophy for living a more meaningful life.
It's about bringing that entrepreneurial spirit, that sense of purpose and ownership
Yeah.
into every aspect of our work,
Right.
even if we're not running our own company.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset from being passive recipients of tasks to becoming active creators of our own work experience.
Mhm.
And as we've discussed, that starts with understanding ourselves, those three personalities,
Right.
the emperor, the manager, and the technician that exist within each of us.
Right. And finding that balance.
Yeah.
That sweet spot where they can all work together harmoniously.
Exactly. And it's not about suppressing any one of those personalities.
Right.
It's about recognizing their strengths and weaknesses and learning to leverage them effectively.
So if you're naturally a technician,
Yeah.
someone who loves to dive in and get things done,
Right.
it's about recognizing that you also need to develop your manager side, your ability to create systems and processes that can replicate your success.
And if you're naturally an emperor,
Right.
someone who's full of big ideas and grand visions,
Yeah.
it's about recognizing that you also need to develop your technician side,
Right.
your ability to execute those ideas and bring them to life in the real world.
And of course, for those who are naturally managers,
Yes.
it's about cultivating that emperor within, nurturing that ability to think outside the box,
Yeah.
to envision new possibilities,
Right.
to challenge the status quo.
Exactly. It's about becoming a more well-rounded individual,
Right.
someone who can think strategically,
Hmm.
plan effectively,
Right.
and execute with precision.
And it's about creating a work environment where everyone feels empowered to do the same.
Absolutely. It's about fostering a culture of ownership where everyone understands the company's vision,
Yeah.
their role in achieving it,
Right.
and the systems that support their success.
I love that idea of a culture of ownership.
Yeah.
It's not about top-down control.
Right.
It's about shared responsibility and collective purpose.
Exactly. And that's what makes the E-Myth Manager philosophy so powerful. It's not just about individual success. It's about creating a more fulfilling and sustainable work experience for everyone.
So for a listener who's ready to embark on this journey of becoming an E-Myth manager,
Yes.
what would you say is the most important first step?
I think the most important step is simply to start.
Hmm.
To take that first step towards self-awareness, towards understanding your own primary aim,
Right.
and towards creating a more conscious and fulfilling work experience. It's a journey, and there will be challenges along the way, but the rewards are well worth the effort.
That's a great point. It can feel overwhelming to try to change everything at once.
Right.
It's about taking small, consistent steps,
Yeah,
experimenting, learning, and adapting as you go.
absolutely. It's not about perfection.
Right.
It's about progress.
Right.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are resources available like Gerber's book, his
Right.
workshops, and a whole community of E-Myth practitioners who can offer support and guidance.
That's so important.
It is.
It's easy to feel isolated in our struggles with work,
Yeah.
but the truth is so many people are feeling the same things.
Exactly. And by sharing our experiences and supporting each other, we can create a more fulfilling and humane way to work,
Right.
one that benefits both individuals and organizations.
I love that vision. So to wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
let's go back to that final thought-provoking question we posed earlier. If you were the emperor of your own work,
Yeah.
what promise would you create? What kind of experience would you want to deliver to your customers, your colleagues, and most importantly, to yourself?
That's a powerful question, and I encourage our listener to really sit with it.
Yeah.
What would your ideal work life look like? What kind of impact would you want to make?
And remember, there are no right or wrong answers here.
Yeah.
It's about tapping into your own unique vision and finding ways to bring it to life, one step at a time.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you have the power to create a more fulfilling and meaningful work experience, both for yourself and for those around you.
Well, this has been a truly inspiring conversation. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the E-Myth Manager.
It's been my pleasure.
We hope it sparked some new ideas and inspired you to take ownership of your work and create a more fulfilling and impactful career journey. Until next time, keep diving deep.